Yeah, so welcome everybody to today's Q&A with Dr. Yen and Tracy, who is an alumni at DID. And to begin the session, we can perhaps get Dr. Yen and Tracy to give a short introduction about who they are and kind of the things that they do here at DID. So maybe we start with Dr. Yen.
Okay, good evening, everybody. I'm Ching-Chiuan. But I'm a Taiwanese. I come to Singapore for about 20 years time. And my first job in Singapore is the job in NUS, so I'm quite happy to have been here for such a long time. And then also quite honored to have a student like Hans Dong, also the very outstanding people or outstanding designer now in Singapore. Myself, at this moment, I'm the co-director for Keio-NUS CUTE Center, which is an establishment between Keio University and NUS. We focus on interaction design, try to do different type of interaction design from tangible interaction to virtual interaction. So we do quite lots of projects for the government as well as for hospital to do different type of medical training, medical innovation. And then sometimes I think for fun, we also try to help. The recent one, we help Jurong Bird Park to design different bird shoes in order to let the bird to have much more speed recovery. So all this I think is something quite interesting or quite fruitful because I think we use our design knowledge and then allow that translate into a daily object and then which can be quite useful or quite impactful to even just I talked about for the bird or even for the human being. Yeah.
Thanks for that, Dr. Yen. Tracy, you have a short intro.
Hi, I'm Tracy. Sorry, could you hear me? Yeah. So I graduated from DID in 2020. Yeah. So I'm currently working at CUTE Center. Like some of the projects that I work on, it's mainly related to medical and simulators and also like interaction design. So one of them I work on is on like using AR, augmented reality, to kind of create a simulator to take dental x-rays. So I also help in doing user research as well as designing like some of the experience and the user interfaces, which I find interesting because I'm interested in interaction design, experience design. So if you have any questions, if you want to know about design or anything, can feel free to ask in this session. Yeah.
Thanks for that. So yeah, students, please feel free, to leave any of your questions for Dr. Yen and Tracy into the Zoom chat, and then we'll get to them slowly. And of course, if you are comfortable at any time, you may also unmute yourself and ask us the questions directly. So maybe before we get to MH's question on the chat, could we get Dr. Yen to maybe elaborate a little bit more about what does medical design mean, or designing for healthcare related projects? What exactly does that mean, and what would a design student have to do?
Okay, so sometimes I will call design for medicine or design for healthcare, right? That sounds sort of very interesting type of area nowadays in Singapore. If you try to go to different hospital like NUH, go to SGH, NGH, even KK Hospital, Utepua, they all set up an innovation center. The reason why they want to set up innovation center is they believe by using design thinking as well as a design innovation type of knowledge, they are able to improve the user experience. And then they are also can use that to enhance the whole process as well as a medical innovation in the hospital. So in the past maybe 10 or 15 years, we work NUH very closely. And then so we try to see how can we work with a surgeon. So quite interestingly, also quite, I think for most of people, you don't have lots of experiences. For our student, if we really try to work with a hospital, they got a chance to go to OT, the operations theater, to do observation, try to see how do the people they conduct the the surgery. And then where allow the student to observe and then to find out the insight, and then to identify where's the problem or where's a new opportunity to design something. So for past few years, our students have some interesting product have been introduced, and then to design or have been licensed out through this sort of opportunity. And then we also try to work with some other place like AWA or other rehabilitation center, which our students can try to see the elderly and then try to see how can we help them. So that's also the other new type of area we are focused on. So in AWA, so for example, now we design 10 different type of a smart game to enhance the rehabilitation experience. So basically, before, all the rehab device is very boring. People just do some sort of repetitive action. But now we try to see how can we introduce game element. So how can we try to improve the motivation. So for at this moment, we introduce for 10 different type of game in the AWA. So that's also something quite interesting for the people to study, or for a designer try to find something meaningful to the people. And the recent one, we also did another project with our architecture department and also physics. We try to see how can we use design to enhance the future or the vision of the healthcare. So if you are interested, now we have one exhibition in National Design Center, which try to talk about distributed care in year 2030. We try to use different type of critical thinking, try to allow the student to talk about different type of new service, and then they try to work with the architecture student as well as a designer from Philips. So in this project, it's quite interesting because, for example, one group of people, they try to see how can they use park connector as a means, which they are able to provide a much more healthy lifestyle for the diabetic patient. So in that case, right, we are able to see the student how to really from observation, from the daily life, and then try to identify the new opportunity. So that's also become something quite interesting for our students, not only talk about a product, but also talk about a service, the environment. Yeah.
Thanks for that, Dr. Yan. Do you happen to have any video links or any links to some visuals that we can show the students for the project that you were talking about?
Okay, if you want to, well, I can show something. Let me share my screen. Okay. Here is some of the project in Q Center we did before. Okay, so for example, like this one, is one of the project we did. Try to see how can we change people's sensory interaction. So this one is, we try to see how can we use a microelectric to change the taste. So it's quite interesting because for example, if you have a high blood pressure, or if you cannot eat something too salty, so by using this product, you are able to reduce the salt intake because we are able to manipulate the taste in terms of a salty, sour, and bitter, 3 different type of tastes. And then through this one, we also think about how can we enhance a holistic type of dining experience. So this one is another project we did by using the integration of a sensory interaction. So we are able to allow people to drink the water, but in the end, they can taste like a cocktail. So we call it as a mocktail. Yeah. So this product has been showcased as well as a license to different company, and then I think showcased in USA, in UK, in Japan, in a lot of different international exhibition, and then I think have been on the media several times already. Yeah. So this product, we also try to see how can we design an interactive app, allow the holistic experience can be much more richer. And then we also try to think about how can we apply this one in a distance manner. So this one is virtual memory, allow the people to communicate in distance and to share the experience. And then we also try to apply this one into a virtual environment. So in a way, allow the people that this one, they are take a hard air, but basically they are able to feel the different type of sensory, like ambient temperature change, or they are able to see the wind or other type of things. And we also apply into games. So this one, And before when we play game, it's all use your vision. So we are able to use a sensory, allow you to feel. So for example, this one I talk about Singapore Post story, Pontiana. So when Pontiana come out, you will smell the banana. So basically, right, it's become something quite interesting for you to play the game. Not only rely on your eye, but you also need to rely on other sensory. And after that, there's another project, just now we talk about for a medical one. We try to design a new device for the dental student to do the injection. So this one is quite interesting because at this moment for a dental education, after the professor do the demo, and then they need to really apply on their peers. So in the way, it's like the first time they do an injection on their peers, and then it's painful, and then sometimes their peers is not so strong, they may just do some mistake. So of course, for the professor, they told us it's quite unacceptable in the 21st century. We still use the people as a first guinea pig. So we try to design a new device which allow them to do an injection on the simulator. And then for the first one is we are able to simulate all the layer of the anatomy. So they are able to feel something different. But if they cannot find the difference, they are able to use the AR part, allow them to visualize with a needle, and they are able to do an injection much better. And then we also try to design something allow them to play by using the whole body interaction in the VR world. And then also try to see, this is another one, a similar one just now talk about by using the multisensory type of interaction. So this one based on another story, we talk about foxfire, which the fox love to eat apple, and then but when you kill the wrong fox, you will create a fire. So in a way, it's become an interesting idea, allow people to play the game, but because of ambient temperature, because of a smell, so basically you use other type of sensory experience allow you to sensitize and then to play game in a very different way. And then we also, by using this idea, to expand into a medical training. So this one, for the people in SAF now, in the Singapore Army, they use this one to train the paramedic, because quite often you cannot use the people for the training, but quite often if in the training they just try to ask them to watch or something else, but it's always not good enough. So we try to use this training, allow them to interact the physical product in the virtual environment. So they are able to get a much better type of so-called muscle training as well as a mental model. And we also won a gold medal in the reimage education this year. Yeah.
Thanks, Dr. Yan. Tracy, were you involved in any of these medical and VR projects that Dr. Yan was sharing?
I was involved in the anesthesia one, the one where you inject into
The dentist one?
the dentist one, yeah. So
Would
I
you like
helped
to
with the
share a bit more about your experience?
as in for that one, I mainly helped with the user testing. So we had a user study where we actually have to set up to have them try out with the actual dentist students. Yeah, so we wanted to compare like what is the difference between like, having an AR setup and then one without the AR, but then they still have the model. So that's what we're trying to compare. Yeah, I think it was pretty cool to see like all the dental students are actually using what we designed and getting feedback for it, and then also continue working on it, and to know that like our projects will actually help them. Yeah, it's pretty meaningful.
Was it I don't know, were there any hurdles in trying to design for dentistry and dental school students without, but even though you may not have the dental knowledge from the get-go, as a designer, how was that experience like?
I think it's although you don't have the knowledge at first, but I think it's interesting for me. Like personally, I find it interesting to learn about this kind of like any new, like for any project, I find it interesting. Like, even if I don't have any pre-knowledge or existing knowledge on like the subject, I think it's interesting to learn about it. So I learn more about like the tooth and like this tooth section, the interior, posterior, or like how you actually count the teeth. So it's quite interesting. Yeah. So when I go to the actual dental clinic, I kind of know what they are talking about sometimes. Yeah, so it's interesting.
Okay,
And
cool. Yeah. Okay, so maybe let's address MH's question in the Zoom chat, which is what design software will DID teach? Maybe Dr. Yan, do you know, or Tracy, from what you remember when you were back in school?
We are mainly taught Rhino, as in like where we actually have like a module where they teach us. Then for other softwares, we also were taught Photoshop, like where we have like digital drawing classes, and Illustrator, yeah, like mainly the Adobe softwares, but a lot of them is like we pick up ourselves as we go through like the projects, and then we learn from each other as well. Yeah, so uh, maybe a lot of the software actually we might have picked up ourselves rather than being taught. Yeah, but they do read like DID do teach the basic ones. Yeah, I don't know about currently. Is there any new software that
I think the beauty of the education system at DID, right, is because we have something called platform system. So in the platform system, quite often there's a junior student as well as a senior student. So quite often, right, because of peer teaching, the senior student quite often in the same team, they will be some sort of advisor. They will try to instruct or try to teach a junior student because there's a lot of know-how. That's a lot of things I think based on all this of the knowledge transfer through the project, that's easier. Because if you talk about traditional way of teaching software, quite often you learn a lot of command, but you never got to practice. But in our way of a practice, that means is you are not only trying to learn how to use the software, but you are really apply into a project. So that's a part for DID student. Quite often, everybody equips something quite different because the project they choose. So if you try to see from the past few weeks, if you attend for some talk or you try to come to the open house, you will see somebody maybe are very, very strong in video because the project nature as well as the way they want to communicate. And then somebody may use, not right now, use a Fusion 360 or what, some sort of SAP or parametric type of software because the project nature allow them to use that software or they require less of the exploration. So that is something quite different from other university because I think normally, right, if you go to most of a traditional education, don't talk about design, even for art, for other type of things, it's always layering type of education. That means everybody learns set type of a skill. But in DID, it's much more versatile in the way because based on your interest, and then you may face something very different. So in your portfolio, that also make you different from other people. Otherwise, you will see some of the university students, you see their portfolio is quite homogeneous. It's like everybody have a same type of a project, and then it's maybe only the phone different or something different. But in DID, quite often you will see a very different type of skill set in different people.
Thanks for that elaboration, Dr. Yan. Perhaps now we can address Truman's question, where they're asking, I guess because medical projects, right, you kind of need to dive right into understanding what the medical condition is about and things like that. So they're curious about how long does it usually take for students to do the research for these type of projects where, they may really need to become super familiar with the medical condition and things like that.
Okay, I think it's quite different depending on the project nature. And for us, the first thing is we need to try to provide a context. So, for example, in our dental project or our medical project, we need to try to talk to the surgeon or the dentist have to allow the student to really go into do observation. Quite often, right? I think compared to a medical student, they read everything from the book first. But for us, I don't think we don't have lots of time for us to read. So the best thing is really you go to observe and then try to question and then try to identify what's the problem. And then the other one is after you after you go for observation, we always encourage the student to try to watch as many YouTube video, where you can see nowadays a lot of people share different type of video, but which sometimes quite interesting to talk about. Even I think you can see some operation type of video really show in the YouTube. So you are able to really know and to do some benchmarking. Because quite often, maybe in Singapore, the way of teaching or the way about do operation is different from the way in USA. So sometimes you may start to see, oh, in Singapore, it's because the way of using or the way of teaching is different. So they may face this problem. So I think a lot of these sort of things, right, it also take time for people to learn. So in some certain sense, I think most of people, when they start to take medical studio, it's a very challenging type of course. And then I think most of people feel very difficult, especially I think they will struggle at least for 1 month to 1.5 months to try to reframe the question. And then because a lot of things you don't know. So until you are much more clear and then you are able to really discuss with the surgeon. And the other problem is quite often for the surgeon, you talk to them the idea quite often in terms of description may not be so useful. So in this context, in the medical project, the prototyping skill become another thing very important. So quite often we always try to prototype something about our concept, allow the surgeon can visualize by themselves. After that, they are able to give you a much better comment. Yeah, and same as if you want to talk about even service design, or that we did something talk about how do we reduce the queuing in the healthcare environment. All these other prototyping evaluation becomes something very important as a backbone. And then in a way, because all these are the more evident, which allow you or to guide you to a right direction.
Thanks, Dr. Yan. Maybe just to add on to that, for the prospective students who don't yet know, for most of our projects that we do in DID, they tend to last either 11 or 13 weeks. So within 11 or 13 weeks, you kind of have to deliver your entire project. So in this case, for example, if it's a medical project, it's also in the same time frame. So a lot of times when we talk about research, like Dr. Yan mentioned, right, about prototyping, we usually also can use these prototyping iterations as research. Yeah, so every week, if you come up with a different prototype, you speak to a doctor, you speak to a patient about it, and then you tweak it next week, and then that also forms part of the research that you do. Yeah.
And for those students who are very interested in doing medical projects, right, you can actually use your final year thesis module to take on a medical project. So that will be a year-long project where you can, dive head first into the whole thing and understand like what are the different possibilities in the OT theater, and then try to find out what are some of the problematic areas that the surgeon is facing, and then you use your design skills to create some solutions for the surgeons.
I think Benjamin have one project very interesting during his final year. I think he identified an interesting area which allow people to harvest the cartilage to do a year.
Yeah. So I managed to get so I'm an alumni from DID as well. So I did my thesis many years ago, and then at that point of time, I think I was quite crazy. I emailed the CEO of some hospital, and then I saying that I'm a student. Can I go to your operating theater to observe and stuff like this? And the CEO was so enthusiastic. He straight away emailed within 5 minutes and replied, "Here, please, this is my head of surgery and blah blah blah. Please help these students." So I managed to get into the theater like more than 10 over times during that year, and I managed to like film down all the different things. So at the start, it was quite bloody, and I don't really understand what's happening. But as the project progresses, right, I could even sometimes tell the surgeon, "Hey, that's the wrong side," or I could actually give feedback to the surgeon. So it's really quite an experience for for design students to enter the operating theater.
Yeah, if you want to find out more about what Ben did in his thesis, project, you can feel free to ping him later on in our Telegram group that we have.
I think in the group, Raymond likes to do medical projects also. He gave a thumbs up.
Yeah, Ben, do you have a link or anywhere that we can see
Wow.
your project online? Is it
I'm not
on
too
the
sure.
website
Let me go and check. Let me check.
Okay.
I think you go to the platform project, right? They do have few projects there. And the other one need to go to my blog, but my blog is a private one. Need to have a password.
Okay, I have a question coming in privately to me. So the question is going that, you know, by designing for medical products or products in the real world, of course we have to ensure user needs and safety, right? When designing. So was there ever a project where safety had to be prioritized, which the designer neglected on the user needs? So I guess correct me if I'm wrong, okay, on interpreting your question, meaning that was there ever a project where, you know, it had to be so safe that the user needs had to somewhat be compromised a little bit?
Okay, I think for a student project, quite often we try to see how can we provide a so-called appropriate solution. But because for NUS, right, we have something called Design Incubation Center. We have a Q Center here. So quite often, for the center, we try to see, even for my medical studio project, we will try to see how can we further that, allow the student to work not only within the studio, because quite often, if you want to design a medical product, it talk about 2 years, 3 years, even longer. So you require a longer time to work with that. So for example, say a few years ago, we have one project come from a group of students try to design a asthma inhaler. And basically after that, there's a company think about it's quite interesting. So we start to work with a company and then try to patent the product. And then after that, we are able to do some testing or something else. So the whole process is quite long. So in the first part, of course, we try to see how can we teach as comprehensive as possible. But a lot of things just now when we talk about a safety part or other type of things, of course, when we start to do design, we will try to understand all the regulation requirement. But a lot of things in the user study, we will start to understand how can we further improve. So quite often we don't talk about compromise. It's how do we really try to, based on a different situation, and then to reach an appropriate solution in that case.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Yan. So the next question we have from Shafika is that as the DID course is mostly project-based, can students venture out into different areas of specialty for the projects, or are there always specific project briefs to fulfill throughout the semester?
Okay, so if you try to see in the platform system, I think if you try to read the whole thing, like every semester we'll introduce about 8 to 10, or now I think it's even until maybe 15 different type of platform into one semester. And the platform quite often have a 3 different type of a topic. If I want to summarize, one is we talk about visionary. That means we try to explore the future. So in a way, this of the topic quite often even say if we talk about this platform is a critical thinking, but the topic area may change. So, but the main idea is try to create or try to train student critical thinking. And then we have another one is much more about collaborative type of project. That means they may work with different type of industry. So the industry may change. Say, for example, this year we want to work with, talk about a digital innovation. So we may work with Philips, but next year may work with Dell. And then you will see the nature of a Philips and Dell is very different. What they want to do will be different, but that will allow the student have a very variety type of a portfolio as well as experience. Because when we do for this collaborative project, that means we will try to bring in the real industry player, the designer, the researcher, also maybe engineer to bring into the team. So in that case, that will create a much better synergize into different type, into the environment. And then the last one, it could be much more in-house project, which will try to explore something, a new area. May not be a new vision, but it's much more area where what the industrial designer should learn. So for example, I think you can see some project is much more craft-oriented, which allow the designer can try to learn craft and art. But we also have some project talk about service design, which try to learn in a way, allow them to prototype something in the whole process and as well as a UI UX. So you are able to see three different type of project there, at least three different type of project, but within the platform are three different type of, in the vertical there maybe have about 10 to 15 different vertical. So the variety and then the mixture is very rich. So quite often, right, in my experience, I do have a student come back to do medical studio 3 times in 4 years. But they did not take any project repeat. Every project they do is very different. And then even the collaborator also change. So that is a part for the richness as well as I think the richness of the whole education in US. Because I think we believe even in the same type of project, but through different type of environment, through different type of client, through different type of the objective, the whole end goal will be different. And then also train the student play in different role. So just now we talk about there's a senior student and junior student together. So in the project, I think in the junior time, in the maybe first year and second year, they are playing much more junior designer role. So they are learning much more. They will try to explore and then try to learn from the senior. Then the senior, they will try to do is much more as a leader, and then they are able to try to help the junior student to learn something or even guide them or make much more important decision.
Yeah, thanks for sharing a bit more about the platform structure, Dr. Yan. But maybe in short, Shafika, after the year 1 fundamentals, for year 2 and up to the first half of year 4, you do get to choose your own projects. So each of these projects that you choose from will have specific project briefs, but because there is a variety, you can choose if you so decide that, okay, I really like healthcare or I really like medical design, then you can follow Dr. Yan's students, right, who take medical studio 3 times in a row, but you will still get different projects because the projects kind of change around every semester depending on how the tutors bring in these projects. Yeah, and then in your final year, you get to come up with your own thesis project where you get to come up with your own project brief. So yeah, hope that is a clearer picture of kind of the overall curriculum structure that we have here at DID. So yeah, I think that is the questions we have in the chat for now. So students, please feel free to add more questions, okay? But perhaps now that since you're on the topic of platform studios, Tracy, do you want to give, I don't know, tell us a little bit about your experience with maybe one of the platform studios that you did when you were a student that was the most impressionable or that taught you a really important thing that you still remember today?
Let me think about like which. Maybe one of the platforms is they're all memorable in different ways, but this one I think I had the most fun. So this one is kind of like the brief was regarding creating an experience, an interactive experience that kind of bring forth like a brand, a certain brand's that emotional qualities and like kind of, so it's kind of like you kind of decide what experience, what's the context of the experiences, but you kind of design the interaction that brings forth certain emotional qualities related to a certain brand. So for our team, we kind of chose Swatch, like the watch brand, and yeah, we get to because to create this experience, we get to kind of explore a software called Touch Designer, we've never tried before. We also got to learn Arduino, I think. Yeah, Arduino and Touch Designer. So we get to try a new software that we didn't try before. So it was pretty cool learning this new software while trying to create like our projects. So it was like a different experience, like because we were all new to this like the software, so it was pretty fun. So we get to learn while we do our project. I just had a lot of fun for that studio, maybe because we get to play around with and experiment with a lot of different ideas.
Do you have any visuals or a video to share with everyone about it? Just so we get a better idea of the project that you're talking about.
I have the final video I could share, like
Okay,
the presentation video.
sure, that'd be cool.
Hold on. I have to go find it. Okay.
Tracy, is there supposed to be sound?
Is there sound?
I don't hear any from my side. I think you
Hold
may
on.
need to reshare with the sound option checked.
Okay. Hold on. Is there sound?
Oh, so you cover the rabbit. Oh my gosh, so cute! Oh, it's really on my head.
Only realized it was ironic. I was under aftermath after the fact. How could I not?
That's so cute. And my hand became embedded. Nice.
So that was our final product that we presented.
Yeah, do you have, I don't know if this is a difficult question to answer, but do you have one key takeaway from doing that project?
Let me think. I think like for the project, mainly maybe it's about I guess one of the key takeaways is being able to prototype it, like to be able to try out different iterations and prototypes, even if it's with something that we're not familiar with, like a new kind of software, is to just try out in whatever kind of like prototype out, maybe a low fidelity as in like the easiest way you could prototype out an experience. Like even if you are not super familiar with like even though maybe your technicality you are not very familiar with it, but you could still kind of prototype out something simple to try and then test and kind of just iterate from there. Then you build upon like so that you could build upon this little iterations to the final product. So even if it's like your prototypes are not the highest fidelity or the most complete, you can still kind of test it out and try it. So I guess that's one of the takeaways, like to not test at the highest fidelity, because even if your ability is limited, you could still kind of try out. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, yeah, thanks for sharing, Tracy. Ben, do you have any questions on your end? Any student message you? You're on mute.
Yes, correct. There's someone who is asking, right? For the final year project, right? Can they collaborate with other faculties? Like for example, now we are in College of Design and Engineering. So will we be kind of like be able to partner with, let's say, some engineering student or some mechanical engineering student, or even some doctor from the Faculty of Medicine to do the final year project? That was their question. Dr. Yan, you are on mute.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, at this moment, I don't think we follow the current system. Most of our students, they do a so-called a single project. That means individual project. That means is they work alone, but they can find collaborator from professional field. So quite often in their final year project, like just now when Benjamin mentioned, he has a collaborator from hospital. Yeah, so that's quite typically what's happened. But I think for long term, because now we are talking about specialization for the thesis, so it could be happen, but I haven't sure yet. But so it could be changed. So you can see, for example, like some university, they may do capstone project, which allows 3 different type of speciality put together. So all these sort of things, I think for long term, it could be possible to happen. So about, well, in the end, for example, you want to do the whole system, they require a service type of person, they require innovative type of people, they require a digital design type of person. So it may be some sort of thing can be gelled together and then also can work with computing or other type of people. So I think all these sort of things become a new possibility because of a change of a curriculum. Yeah, but so far I don't think, well, it's still about 2 to 3 years to go. So we haven't really make our mind whether all this sort of possibility will happen or not. Yeah.
Thanks, Dr. Yan. Ben, any other questions on your end? No? Okay. Students, any other questions from anybody? I think if not, we have addressed all the questions so far that we have received for Dr. Yan and Tracy. Any other questions? I think we have time for maybe 1 to 2 more questions before the end of the session today. Maybe in the meantime, I can ask Dr. Yan, what is your favorite part about designing? Maybe favorite part about designing specifically for medical and healthcare projects?
I think it's always quite interesting to do all this sort of medical project. And then quite often, right, I think you see your product have been used and to help people. That's something quite amazing. Yeah. So that just now when Tracy mentioned about, say, for example, when we start to design our simulator for anesthesia, and the doctor come and talk to us, say, okay, they want to do something, but they spend some money to ask outside people, but they did not really do it. Because quite often, if you talk about you want to do a simulator for VR, you talk about a company, they are very strong in VR, but they may not be strong in that. The way we try to do is not only talk about VR, we try to talk about how can we integrate different type of knowledge or skill set together. So that is a different part for a design school, because quite often we are the integrator rather than we are the one only focus on one vertical. So in that case, right? So for example, just I mentioned about for the medical simulator. So when we start to do that, and then after that, we are able to see 60 students that really benefit. Everybody have one set of a device, and then they put on their desk. They are able to apply it in their education. And same as I think we also help just now I talked about the bird shoes, and then we also help the other one for the Jurong Bird Park, help their home bill, because this one home bill have a disease, and then for the cancer. So we try to design a thesis to help them. And same as we also design other things to help people. So for example, about a few years ago, we have one student to design a walking aid to help the patient who cannot stand up, but they are able to stand up. I think a quite similar project what Dong also did it before. And then we also have another project. I think it's also very meaningful from Ethan Chow. He did a project to help the immobilized patient to move their body. Because quite often, right, if you try to see at this moment, this type of patient, they stay at home and then the parent is the one who help them. So nearly they need to do like 3 times a night to wake up and then to turn the body for the kid. And the quality of life is nightmare basically. And then but for the kid, they also cannot help, but they cannot help. So in a way, Ethan, he spent the time to really go to the patient's house and then to understand the whole lifestyle. And then after that, he designed a new device we call Flippo, which we do a lot of clinical study now. And then at this moment, I think we are able to even to help them to do some wound recovery much more faster. And then also, I think as a result, he also has been invited to the World Economic Forum to share his outcome. So that is something quite amazing as an undergraduate student who can go to all of the so-called top economic forum in the world and then to make the top people in the world and then to share his idea. So all these things become something quite amazing to see how can we use design to change people's life and then to make life better.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Yan. Ethan, you're in the call, right? Ethan, do you want to share a bit about your project that Dr. Yan was talking about? If it's convenient for you to unmute and speak. No?
Disappear. I can share the project. I think it's here. So just I think you asked me to share some medical project. Sorry, this one I see. Can you guys see the screen?
Yes, we see
So
your.
this one of a project, I think from medical side, the student try to design a prosthesis. At this moment, before when you have some sort of bone fracture, you need to do an operation, and then that means you need to cut your finger out. Cut the finger and then try to do an open surgery. But this one, you are able to do, we use a 3D printing idea and then allow people don't need to do an operation, but the bone will able to get together and then they can recover about 1 month's time. So we did a clinical trial, a clinical study is quite effective at this moment. And this is the one just I mentioned for Ethan's project. So basically, right, he designed things allow there are 2 different pneumatic airbag inside, and then which allow that to turn the human body. So in that case, right, I think in the whole study we found out the patient have a much better bowel movement, and then in a way the parents also don't need to really wake up all the night. So that becomes something quite amazing, and then to help the patient in some certain sense, yeah. And then I think this one is the other project we did for the hospital to do a simulation to help them to train the surgeon for hand surgery. And then this one is one of a famous project from Dongko a few years ago. I think it's a leapfrog, which allow the CP children to stand up and then to walk, yeah, by themselves. Yeah. Here is just another example when they work in the industry. Yeah. So that you can see Li Ren here. Li Ren was some of the project lead in the Khoo Hospital. So basically in Khoo they try to use design thinking and then to help a lot of different type of service. and then to allow the patient have a much more patient care in the whole hospital. Yeah. I think you can find this one in the DID link as well. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe Ben, could you just drop the link of that course page in the chat? I think that would be helpful. Thank you. Okay, so we have a few more questions come in. So I think let's just answer that and then we can end the session. So we'll end the session with Yan Song's question, okay? So but before that, I have two more questions. So I have one question about do students have to take specific modules related to their project of choice? So for example, if the student is interested to take up healthcare related projects in the platform studios, will they need to take, let's say, a life sciences or medical related module before that?
Not really. I think we, in the most of the platform project, I think we will start to guide the student, but of course it also depends on the difficulty level. So sometimes, of course, there may be a very difficult start in the first place. Yeah, and then especially I think for the second year, if in the vertical type of setting, they are really the younger people and then most junior people. So they may face a lot of challenge. But in a way, in the real world, that's what's really happened. Because I think if you go to a real world in the industry, people don't care about you are the junior designer or senior designer. You come in, for example, if they ask you to design a new mobile phone, everybody will do the same mobile phone rather than you have because you are junior, you will design a simple mobile phone. There's no such things happen. Yeah. So in a way, the whole education is quite follow less of the real world type of experience, allow the student really experience less of the pressure. And then so, but of course, in the junior year, they are much more exploring all different ideas. And then in the senior year, they are able to try to become good at some special area they want to be.
Yeah. So yeah, there's no sort of prerequisite lah to take up.
Yeah, we don't have that sort of things in our education.
Okay. Next question, second last question is perhaps maybe Tracy can answer this one. The question is, may I know what an average day in the life of an NUS DID student is like? Is a lot of time spent in studio and on explorative studies?
Yeah, I think most of our time is spent on projects. Yeah, where we like I guess we mainly work on them. I think so in one semester you'll have 2 platforms, so 2 projects. Then I guess most of your time will be spent like with your group mates and kind of like working on them. And I guess if you have kind of like maybe medical studio, you also have to make time to meet the doctors or like to do the research, to interview. Yeah, so that's time that's spent as well. And also we also do take general modules, like general education modules. I think there was GEM last time. I'm not sure about now, but like, so you also have time spent outside of ID, so you actually like take mods that you can choose also. Like, so there was like, I think a statistics mod that we had to take and the marketing mod. Yeah, so it's also some which those skills also could be useful in the future. Yeah, so besides design, you actually do work on that as well. Yeah, I think most of the time is spent in studio.
Yeah, maybe to just add on a little bit of my experience with when I was back in school is that the studio is open, there will always be students in studio, but of course it's up to each individual studio to decide, whether they want to go back to studio to do work in between the modules, or they would rather meet, sometimes with the change of environment, that's also good, they would rather meet their group mates outside. But studio is kind of always there as an open collaborative space for students, for DID students to use to discuss their projects and things like that. Okay. So maybe let's take the last question from Yan Song. So with some mechanical engineers are expected to design using software that allows you to CAD, right? Are the skills that industrial designers valued in such work? Yan Song, do you mean whether it's valuable to have skill sets like CAD in our work, or do you mean are ID skills valued in a more technical project scenario?
Maybe I can just directly answer whether to see whether it's that
Sure.
or what you want. Because basically, right, I know for mechanical engineer, they did do a lot of different type of, for example, fluid analyze, or they try to do other type of use a CAD for different type of simulation. All these sort of things is something is quite interesting and quite useful. So I think, for example, this afternoon, I just talked to another student. He tried to design, we call a 4D printing. That means how can we use a parametric type of idea, allow the scenes to manipulate. So basically a 3D form in the end is not a 3D form because it have an additional axis or move or what. But that create a very interesting type of interaction. But quite often, for designer like us, we will try to do a lot of experiment to understand that. But in engineering side, they have the other way. They try to see how can they use a simulation, try to foresee what will happen, and after that, they may just do it in later way. So I think all this of skill, right, is because of a way of a design in different approach. So if you know how to use the tool quite well, and then you know how to approach things in different way, I think in the end, the outcome always quite amazing and then always quite fulfilled in some certain sense. So I think it's a add-on for me. Because in the end, right, for a designer, I think people like Ben, in his time, I know he know a lot of different type of interactive type of tool, which their classmate may not know. But because of that sort of tool, so he is able to do some other things or some other experiment people cannot do. Same as when you have other type of skill which you know how to apply into your design or into your project, of course that become a very valuable type of additional tool, allow you to make your project better. Yeah. So I think for me is really how do you really integrate different type of knowledge into the whole design project. That's the most important things rather than whether it's useful or not. Because in the end, I think if I want to say like some people will always say, okay, for example, is sketching so important in design? Yes, it's very important. I will say that. But if you try to read the newspaper, one famous example is our Professor Hans Tan. He doesn't know how to sketch. And myself, I also don't know how to sketch. But we still survive in some certain sense because we know we use other means to help us for thinking process. And then we also use other means allow us to do for communication. But of course, if sometimes if I think about if I know if I can sketch better, I may do the communication even better. Yeah. So in that case, I think for me, all these other skill, all the knowledge, all the tool is a one to help you to integrate and then to become a better tool and for communication.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Yan, for that. I hope that answers your question, Yan Song. If not, I guess you can also clarify your question in the chat, or if you unmute yourself, that will also work. So I think looking at the time, that is kind of all the questions that we have time for today to address. But before everyone leaves, I would just like to make a short announcement for those who don't yet know. I will put the link into the chat. But for tomorrow, we actually have organized a sort of special one-time visit thing to SDE4, which is where our studio is. And we will also have some of our projects kind of put up for you to interact with and for you to also speak to some students and tutors who will be around. So this is, I think, we tried to come up with this session because we heard that not many of the not every student who wanted to could make it down for the open day that we had on Saturday, and also that there might have been a bit too little time during that session. So yeah, if you didn't manage to see come down to open day on Saturday, you can actually register here with the QR code or at the link in the chat to come down to visit SDE for tomorrow at 6 p.m., 6 to 7:30 p.m. So if you would like to do that, please remember to register, because we do have limited slots. So once that is filled up, then unfortunately we cannot open up again. So it's maybe a one-time event. So yeah, please register if you are interested. And yeah, with that, I think that is all that we have for today. And for those who are not yet in our Telegram group, you may choose to join us at the link that is also just put into the chat. And if not, I think, yeah, that's all. Any last words from Dr. Yan and Tracy or Ben?
Yeah, I think for me, the trip to DID is always very fun. And I think if you got a chance to come in last Saturday, basically you will see a variety type of project. So you are able to see some project, for example, guided by Dong, which is a Kickstarter project. And they already either production or either in the production, and then but the student use 1 semester time try to come out something which can be commercializable, but also provide a new idea to the human. Yeah, and then you also can see some other very crafted project by using different type of sewing idea to design a new garment. And then you also can see interactive project from Clement, so which they try to design a different type of interaction for game or for different type of challenge. And then I think also you can see a haptic type of idea, how to use haptic become an interface to allow a different type of interaction. And then you also see other project like we use the trouble electric to do a wireless type of the contactless type of interaction. So a lot of things is quite magical. And then with the DID, basically, when you come in, a lot of things you need to experience and then you can understand, because all these things will try to enhance your so-called your daily life. And then so without the experiencing, really it's quite difficult for people to talk. We can talk about a lot of things, but when you experience, you will start to see the magic. And that magic is always the one from the DID education we can try to bring. And also the SDE4 is another good location for everybody to come, because it's a carbon neutral building. And then you will see a lot of new type of sensory interaction in the classroom. So in a way, it's much more allow you to living in they call a living lab, which in a way, of course, we have been censored by everything. And then I think for our building department, they can do a lot of AI type of things to based on our data. But in the other ways, we also can try to see all this data to enhance people's life. And how can we make use of this of the data? So, for example, I think JJ did another professor, JJ, she did another project with Johnson Control. We try to see how can we use all this other data to come out a new type of interaction for service. Yeah. So I think it's a wonderful opportunity for people to come and then to experience in life. Yeah.
Thanks, Dr. Yan. JC, Ben, anything? No?
No.
Okay, then thank you. And in Dr. Yan's words, please register to come and experience the magic in DID and our projects that we have. So yeah, thank you. We have 2 more sessions lined up of Q&A on Zoom that you can also join if you cannot make it down tomorrow to see us. So look up on our socials to find out more that's happening on Saturday as well as next Tuesday. So yeah, if not, then see everyone and have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Dr. Yan and Tracy. Thanks for spending your time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.